The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. Judge Helen O'Rourke sat behind the bench, her wheelchair locked in place beneath her black robe. Her hands rested on the polished oak like they were carved from stone. Everyone knew her story: the fall, the shattered spine, the woman who once walked like thunder, now trapped in silence. Today's case was simple. A man broke into a pharmacy and stole medicine. Open and shut. Guilty. Next. But nothing felt simple. The air was too thick, too tense, like something invisible was pressing against every chest in the room. Then the doors opened. A little girl stepped inside. She was tiny, maybe 5 years old. Her dress hung loose on her body like it belonged to someone else. Her shoes were scuffed and pale. Her hair fell in thin strands around her face. Hi. Welcome to Hear Voice Stories. Thanks for watching. Kindly tell me what country you're watching from. Every eye in the courtroom followed her. Prosecutors stiffened. Officers froze. The defendant, her father, tried to stand, but handcuffs yanked him back down. The girl walked straight toward the judge. Her feet tapped softly against the marble floor. She didn't look scared. She didn't look lost. She looked certain. She stopped at the bench and tilted her head back to meet Helena's eyes. Her voice was small, but it echoed like a bell. "If you free my dad," she said, trembling but clear, "I'll heal you." The room exploded. Gasps tore through the crowd. Someone laughed, dark and nervous. Then another. Then more. The laughter spread like a crack in ice. But the girl didn't blink. She didn't smile. She didn't look away. Helena's fingers twitched on the armrest. Heat rushed up her neck. Her jaw clenched. This was absurd. Impossible. A child's fantasy. But something electric tingled at the base of her spine. Something she hadn't felt in 3 years. No, it was nothing. A trick. Her mind playing games. The laughter died quickly because the girl just stood there, staring, waiting, believing. For one impossible second, judge and child locked eyes. Two broken lives crashing into each other like storms colliding. And suddenly, nothing in the courtroom felt real anymore. The prosecutor stood up, ready to speak. Officers shifted. Reporters leaned forward. But Helena couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because deep in her chest, beneath layers of pain and bitterness and shattered hope, something stirred. Something she thought was dead. The trial wasn't about theft anymore. It was about something bigger, something no one could name. And everyone in that room knew it. The girl's father sat frozen, his face pale, his eyes filled with terror and love. The judge's hands trembled on the oak, and the world waited. Because what happened next would change everything. Hours earlier, Kalen Price sat alone in a concrete holding room staring at his reflection in a narrow strip of glass. Hollow eyes, rough beard, bruised knuckles. He looked like a criminal. Maybe he was. His wrists burned where the handcuffs rubbed against raw skin. He'd never stolen anything in his life. Not a candy bar, not a penny, not until last night. 2 officers appeared at the door. They didn't speak. They just grabbed him by the arms and marched him down a cold hallway lined with buzzing lights. Voices echoed around him. Reporters, clerks, attorneys whispering his name like a curse. But nobody knew the truth. Nobody cared that he used to build wooden toys for neighborhood kids. Nobody cared that he sang lullabies to his daughter every night. All they knew was the headline: "Man steals medicine." The world didn't care about reasons. Kalen's chest tightened when he heard the judge's name, Helen O'Rourke. Before the accident, she was known for harsh rulings. Zero mercy. After the accident, people said she'd only gotten colder. His heart sank. He pictured Lila lying in that clinic bed, tubes snaking into her small arms, oxygen mask fogging with every breath, her chest rising and falling too fast, too shallow. The doctor's words still echoed in his head. Severe asthma, escalating, dangerous. Without medication, she could suffocate. The medicine that kept her alive had run out. Insurance was gone. Bills piled up like gravestones. He begged pharmacies, pleaded with hospitals, got down on his knees in front of strangers. Nothing. Then he broke. He smashed a window, grabbed what she needed, ran through rain and glass and sirens screaming behind him. He wasn't running from the law. He was running from death itself. Now he stood before men in suits who saw only a crime, not a daughter, not desperation, not love, just a criminal. The courtroom doors opened. Light poured in. Kalen squinted. He expected chains. He expected years behind bars. He expected to lose everything. What he didn't expect was Lila walking toward him. She shouldn't be here. She was supposed to be at the clinic, resting, breathing through tubes. But there she was, pale, fragile, barefoot, walking straight toward the judge like she owned the world. Kalen's throat closed, his vision blurred. No, baby, don't do this. Don't put yourself in danger for me. But Lila didn't look at him. She looked at the judge, and then she said it. If you free my dad, I'll heal you. Kalen's heart stopped. The room erupted in laughter, but he didn't hear it. All he heard was his daughter's voice, steady, fearless, impossible. And all he felt was terror, because if she failed, they'd take her from him forever. If she failed, he'd lose the only thing left in this world that mattered. His little girl, his miracle, his reason for breathing. And she was betting everything on a promise no one believed. Lila Price was born too small. The doctors said her lungs were weak, her bones fragile. They warned she might struggle to breathe for the rest of her life. They never warned she would be extraordinary. Since her mother died 2 years ago, Lila lived in a tiny room above a laundromat. The walls shook when the machines ran. The air always smelled like soap and steam. One mattress, one blanket, one chair. She knew hunger the way other kids knew toys. But she never complained. She was quiet until she wasn't. She was gentle until she needed to be strong. And when she believed something, she believed it with her whole heart. That morning at the clinic, a nurse whispered to another nurse by the door, "Her father's hearing is happening now. He'll probably get years." Lila's chest tightened. Years. That meant she'd be alone. That meant foster care. That meant losing the only person who ever loved her. No. She pulled the oxygen tube from her nose. Alarms beeped. Nurses shouted. But Lila was already gone. She slipped through the sliding doors and into the cold morning air. Her lungs burned. Her legs trembled. But she didn't stop. 6 blocks. The courthouse was 6 blocks away. Some people later swore they saw a woman guiding her, a figure in white holding her hand. Others said they saw nothing but a little girl stumbling alone through the streets. Whatever the truth was, Lila made it. A security guard tried to stop her at the entrance. "You can't go in there, sweetheart." She looked up at him with eyes too big for her face. "My dad needs me." The guard hesitated. Something about her voice made him step aside. Inside, officers told her to leave. Adults argued above her head. Voices shouted. Hands reached for her, but she slipped between them like wind pushing through branches. Then she saw him, her father, hands cuffed, face bruised, eyes drowning in hopelessness. And she knew every painful step had been worth it. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just walked forward, knowing something the rest of the world did not. Something impossible. She had dreamed about the judge last night. In the dream, the judge was running through a field of tall grass, laughing, free. And Lila heard a voice, soft, warm, like her mother's, whispering in her ear, "You can help her. You can help him. You just have to believe." So she did. She believed she had the power to heal. She believed she had the power to save her father, even if no one else did. She stopped in front of Judge Helen O'Rourke and looked up at the woman trapped in a wheelchair. And she made a promise that would change everything. "If you free my dad, I'll heal you." The room laughed. But Lila didn't care, because she knew something they didn't. Miracles don't ask for permission. They just happen. Judge Helen O'Rourke was once a force of nature. Sharp mind, fierce voice, perfect posture, words like thunder. Entire courtrooms rose when she entered. Attorneys feared her. Criminals trembled before her gaze. She never lost a case, never showed mercy she didn't believe was earned. Then came the accident. A collapsed railing on the courthouse stairwell. One moment she was standing at the top, victorious after a brutal trial. The next, she was falling backward through empty air. 12 steps. Her head hit stone. Her spine twisted between steel and concrete. The sound her body made still haunted her nightmares. She woke in a hospital bed 3 days later, unable to move her legs. The doctor spoke in soft voices she hated. They said therapy might help. They said the damage was severe. They said she'd need to adjust, as if losing half your body was something you could just accept. She spent 3 months refusing visitors. She screamed at nurses. She threw water bottles at therapists. She drank until the pain felt distant. Eventually, she returned to the bench, darker, harder, colder. Her wheelchair squeaked against polished tile. People avoided looking at her. She hated their pity more than she hated the pain. For 2 years, she ruled from that chair. But every verdict felt heavier. Every sentence felt like shadow pressing against her chest. She had stopped believing the world could change. Then this case arrived. A father stealing medicine for his dying child. It stirred something buried deep. Memories she didn't want. Her own father had once fought for her when she was small and sick. And now this child stood before her. Small, fragile, fearless. If you free my dad, I'll heal you. Helena's grip tightened on her wheelchair arm. The muscles in her neck tensed. She hated hope. Hope was crueler than pain. Hope made you believe in things that could never happen. Hope broke you worse than any fall. But something electric tingled at the base of her spine. Impossible. A hallucination. Her mind playing tricks. Magic didn't exist. Healing didn't exist. Miracles were lies people told themselves to survive. And yet, Lila's voice didn't sound like a lie. It sounded like a promise. Helena stared into the girl's eyes, bright, glowing, fearless. "You're a child," Helena said quietly. "You don't understand what you're saying." Lila tilted her head. "You don't remember what walking feels like, but you miss it every day." The courtroom gasped. Helena froze. No one knew about her private therapy sessions. No one knew she cried at night, gripping cold legs that never responded. No one knew she whispered apologies to a god she stopped believing in. But Lila knew. Heat flushed through Helena's chest. Her throat tightened. "How could you possibly?" "I dreamed about you," Lila said softly. "You were running." Tears burned behind Helena's eyes. She wanted to dismiss this, mock it, end it, but she couldn't. Because for the first time in 2 years, something inside her cracked open, and light poured in. Before the courtroom, before the promise, before the world started watching, there was a night that shattered everything. Rain slammed against the city like fists pounding on glass. Inside the small room above the laundromat, Lila gasped for air. Each breath scraped through her throat like broken glass. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her lips turned pale. Kaylin knelt beside her, trembling, holding a bottle of medicine in his shaking hands. Empty, completely empty. "Just hold on, baby," he whispered. "Just hold on." But there was nothing left to give her. He wrapped her in a blanket and tucked her into his coat. Her small body felt like paper in his arms. He ran into the streets. Rain soaked through his clothes. His boots splashed through puddles that reflected red and blue lights from somewhere far away. Clinics were closed. Pharmacies shuttered. Emergency rooms demanded payment he didn't have. Her breaths grew shorter. Her pulse weaker. Her small hand slipped from his jacket. Lightning cracked across the sky like the world was splitting open. Kaylin saw the pharmacy sign flicker ahead. Something inside him snapped. Not reason, not fear. Something deeper. Something primal. He rammed his shoulder against the glass door. Once. Twice. The glass exploded inward. Alarms screamed into the night. He didn't care. He stumbled inside, grabbed inhalers from a shelf. 2, 3, 4. Shoved them into his pockets. His hands were bleeding. His heart was breaking. But Lila was still breathing. He turned to run. That's when the lights hit him. Red and blue, spinning, blinding. Police cars screeched to a stop outside. Officers shouted. Boots pounded pavement. Kaylin ran. He made it halfway down the block before they tackled him to the ground. The inhalers burst from his hands and skidded across wet pavement. He screamed Lila's name until his throat tore. They handcuffed him, dragged him to the car, ignored his pleas. An officer picked up the inhalers and tossed them into an evidence bag, like they were nothing, like they weren't everything. Kaylin twisted in the back seat, watching through rain-streaked windows as another officer found Lila beneath a flickering awning, unconscious, soaked to the bone, lips turning blue. The ambulance said she was minutes from suffocating. Minutes. Kalen sobbed in the back of that police car, knowing he'd failed her, knowing he'd tried to save her and only made everything worse. No one blamed the weather. No one blamed the system. No one blamed the pharmacy that closed early. They blamed him. Now sitting in the courtroom with handcuffs biting into his wrists, he watched his daughter standing alone before a judge who could destroy their lives with one word. A girl who had nearly died because he tried to save her. A girl who believed she could save him. And all Kalen could do was pray she was right. Because if she wasn't, he'd lose her forever. The courtroom was silent after Lila's words. Not peaceful silence. Suffocating silence. The kind that presses against your chest and makes you forget how to breathe. Then someone snorted. A juror in the back row. He tried to cover it with his hand, but it was too late. Someone else laughed. Then another. Within seconds, laughter rippled through the room like wildfire. Nervous, mocking, incredulous. Attorneys shook their heads. Reporters scribbled jokes in their notebooks. One officer whispered something to another, and they both grinned. A child offering to heal a paralyzed judge? Absurd. Ridiculous. Impossible. Kalen closed his eyes. Grief poured through him like ice water. He wished he could pull Lila into his arms and shield her from the cruelty of the world. But Lila didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't cry. She just stood there, staring at Helena like the laughter didn't exist, like it didn't matter. "Do you believe me?" she asked. Her voice cut through the noise like a knife through fog. Everything stopped. The laughter died in people's throats. Helena swallowed hard. Her hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair, so tight her knuckles turned white. Belief was dangerous. Belief meant vulnerability. It meant reopening wounds she'd fought for years to bury. "I believe your father committed a crime," Helena replied, her voice stiff and cold. Lila shook her head gently. "No, I'm not asking about him. I'm asking about you." The judge felt heat rush up her neck. Embarrassment, anger, something she couldn't name. The bailiff stepped forward, ready to escort Lila away. But Helena lifted a hand to stop him. Something was happening here. Something she couldn't yet define. Lila blinked up at her, eyes glowing like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "You don't remember what walking feels like," she said softly, "but you miss it every day." The room inhaled sharply. Helena froze. No one knew about her private therapy sessions where she screamed at doctors. No one knew she cried at night, gripping cold legs that never answered. No one knew she whispered to God, begging for one more step. But Lila knew. "You dream about running," Lila continued, "through fields, with the wind in your face. You wake up and forget you can't walk. Then you remember, and it hurts worse than the fall." Tears burned behind Helena's eyes. Her throat closed. How could this child know? The prosecutor stood abruptly. "Your Honor, this is absurd. The child is clearly disturbed. Remove her immediately." "Sit down," Helena snapped. Her voice cracked like a whip. The prosecutor sat. The courtroom held its breath. Helena looked at Lila. Really looked. And saw something she hadn't seen in years. Hope. Raw. Unfiltered. Unafraid. And suddenly, laughter had nowhere left to hide. Because everyone in that room felt it. Something impossible was happening. And they were all terrified it might be real. Years earlier, Helena stood at the top of the courthouse stairs after a long, brutal trial. Reporters swarmed below. Cameras flashed like lightning. Microphones thrust toward her face. She felt triumphant, alive, invincible. The case had been vicious. A corporate scandal, millions stolen, lives destroyed. She delivered justice with an iron fist. She turned to leave, her heels clicking against marble. That's when she heard it. A sharp metallic crack. The railing bolt snapped. Metal screamed. Her foot slipped. She fell backward. 12 steps, tumbling through empty air like a stone dropped from heaven. Her head struck concrete. Her spine twisted beneath her weight. The sound her body made echoed through the courthouse like a gunshot. Everything went black. She remembered nothing but the taste of blood and someone screaming her name. When she woke 3 days later, she couldn't feel her legs. The world transformed overnight, from power to weakness, from respect to pity. Therapy rooms smelled like bleach and hopelessness. Doctors spoke in gentle tones she despised. They made her try to stand, knowing she couldn't. Just a little pressure, they'd say. Push through the pain. But there was no pain, only emptiness. Friends drifted away. Phone calls stopped. Invitations disappeared. Her husband left 6 months later. "I can't do this," he said. "I'm sorry." Sorry. As if that word could heal anything. Helena told herself she didn't care. She built walls taller than courthouses, thicker than steel. But at night, she dreamed she was running. Always running, through fields of tall grass. Wind in her hair, legs strong and fast beneath her. And always waking to stillness. To cold legs that felt like stone. To a wheelchair that became her prison. Now, looking at Lila, she felt those walls crack. "Why would you think you can heal me?" Helena asked, her voice barely a whisper. Lila tilted her head, eyes bright and certain. "Because I dreamed you were running." Helena's heart stumbled. Kalen's breath caught in his throat. The prosecutor stood abruptly, slamming his hands on the desk. "This is nonsense. The child is hallucinating. Remove her from the courtroom immediately." "No," Helena snapped. Her voice rang like steel through the room. She wasn't protecting belief. She was protecting curiosity. Curiosity was oxygen to a dying spirit. "What do you want, Lila?" Helena asked. The child hesitated, then spoke clearly. "I want 30 days. The courtroom rustled with confusion. 30 days for what? Helena pressed. "To prove I can help you. To prove my dad is good. To prove everyone's wrong." Silence spread like spilled water. 30 days felt like a storm waiting to break, like a match held over gasoline. Helena stared at the girl, then at her father, then at her own hands gripping the wheelchair. Against every rule she lived by, against logic, against the cold, brutal laws that governed her life. She wanted to see what would happen next. 30 days, Helena said. The courtroom exploded. The prosecutor shot to his feet like a man on fire. "This is absurd. Your Honor, the defendant committed felony theft. We request immediate sentencing." His voice echoed off the walls. Veins bulged in his neck. Kalen lowered his head. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. He believed it was already over. But Lila stepped forward. Her tiny hands gripped the edge of the witness stand. Her voice was barely louder than her heartbeat. "You're scared my dad will prove you wrong." Gasps erupted. Whispers hissed through the room like steam. The prosecutor's face turned red. "How dare you? You want him locked away so you don't have to think about what you would have done," Lila continued. "If it was your daughter dying, if you had no money, no help, no choice." Tension coiled through the courtroom like rope pulled tight. Helena leaned back, studying the child. There was no arrogance in Lila's words. Only truth, raw, unfiltered, fearless. "State your request," Helena said quietly. Lila turned to face her. "Release him. Let him take care of me." "And if he runs?" Helena asked. Lila's voice softened. "He won't. He's never run for me." Silence spread like fog. Helena felt the air shifting. Not legally, but spiritually. Something unseen pressing against every spine in the room. Against her better judgment. Against logic. Against the cold rules of law that had ruled her entire life. She made a decision. 30 days, Helena said. The prosecutor exploded. "Your Honor, this is unacceptable. The law clearly states." 30 days, Helena repeated, her voice hard as iron. "A review hearing will be scheduled. If the defendant fails to comply with any condition, sentencing will proceed immediately and without mercy." A storm of voices rose. Reporters scribbled frantically. Officers exchanged shocked glances. But Helena raised her hand. Silence crashed down. "And one more condition," she added. Lila held her breath. Helena's eyes locked onto the girl's. "You say you can help me walk again?" "Yes," Lila whispered. "Then prove it." The words hung in the air like a blade about to drop. Kalen stared, stunned. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Lila nodded without hesitation. 30 days. 30 days to heal her father's reputation. 30 days to heal the judge's body. 30 days to prove miracles were real. The bailiff stepped forward to unlock Kalen's handcuffs. The metal fell away. Kalen's hands trembled as he reached for his daughter. Lila ran into his arms. They held each other like the world was ending and beginning at the same time. Tears streamed down Kalen's face. He buried his nose in her hair and whispered, "What did you do, baby? What did you do?" Lila pulled back and smiled. "I saved you, Daddy." Helena watched them from her wheelchair. Her chest felt tight. Her hands shook. What had she done? She'd just bet her entire career on a child's promise, on something impossible, on hope. And hope was the most dangerous thing in the world. But as she wheeled herself out of the courtroom, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Alive. News spread like wildfire. By evening, every screen in the city glowed with the same headline. Child claims power to heal paralyzed judge. Theft suspect released after daughter's miracle plea. Miracle or manipulation? Reporters camped outside Kalen's building. Cameras lined the street. Neighbors whispered on stairwells and pointed through windows. Clerks at the courthouse repeated the story like it was legend. Some people believed. Most people laughed. Helena pretended she didn't care. She cared more than anyone. Late that night, she wheeled herself to the center of her living room. Moonlight splashed across her legs through the window. She stared at them like they belonged to a stranger. Was she foolish to hope? Was she cruel to let the girl believe something impossible? She thought about her therapy sessions, the electrodes, the straps, the failures. She thought about running through fields as a child. She thought about the sound her spine made when it broke. Hope was dangerous. Hope was agony. But hope made her feel alive again. Across the city, Kalen struggled to rebuild a life shattered by prison walls. He cooked soup for Lila, cleaned the tiny apartment, sat awake every night listening to her breathe. Terrified, she'd stop. She asked him not to doubt her, so he didn't, even when disbelief clawed at him like a beast in his chest. Meanwhile, the city argued. In coffee shops, in grocery stores, on street corners. Children have gifts adults lose. It's hoax. It's delusion. It's faith. Churches held prayer vigils. News anchors debated on live television. Social media exploded with opinions. Some called Lila a saint. Others called her a liar. And beneath all the noise, beneath headlines and whispers and doubt, something extraordinary began to stir. Not in the world, but in the people. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Everyone wanted to believe in something again. Everyone counted down the days. 30 days. 29. 28. By day 15, the city was watching. By day 10, the nation was watching. By day 5, the world was watching. And they were all watching a child. Helena started meeting with Lila twice a week. At first it was formal, clinical. Helena asked questions. Lila answered softly. But slowly something shifted. Lila told stories. She laughed. She asked Helena about her childhood. "Did you ever dance?" Lila asked one afternoon. Helena's throat tightened. "I used to love ballet." Lila smiled. "Then dance with me now." "I can't." "You can move your arms," Lila said. "That's dancing too." So Helena did. For the first time in 3 years, she moved her arms in rhythm. She closed her eyes. She remembered music. And she cried, not from sadness, but from something breaking open inside her. On day 7, Helena felt a flicker of sensation in her left knee. Faint. So faint she thought she imagined it. But it was there. On day 3, she felt warmth spread through her thighs. On day 1, she felt her toes twitch. Just once. Barely. But enough. Kalen watched in silent awe, torn between hope and terror. If Lila failed, they'd both lose everything. But if she succeeded, the world would never be the same. Day 30. The courthouse exploded with chaos before dawn. Reporters swarmed the steps. Cameras lined every corner. Crowds pressed against barricades, chanting, praying, shouting. Some held signs. Believe in miracles. Justice for Kalen. God works through children. Others held different signs. Stop the fraud. Lock 'em up. Science, not magic. The world had chosen sides. Inside, Helena sat alone in her chambers, staring at her reflection. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded like a drum in a collapsing building. Today, she would have to stand, or admit she'd been a fool. A knock at the door. "They're ready for you, Your Honor." Helena closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she didn't believe in. Then she wheeled herself toward the courtroom. The doors opened. Every seat was filled. People stood along the walls. The air felt electric, alive, suffocating. Kaylin and Lila sat at the front. Kaylin looked pale, hollow, like a man waiting for execution. Lila looked calm. Helena wheeled to the bench. The room fell silent. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, 30 days have passed. We request the court proceed with sentencing." Helena's jaw tightened. "The court recognizes the agreement made 30 days ago." She turned to Lila. "Approach the bench." Lila stood and walked forward slowly, gently, like a whisper moving through the air. She stopped in front of Helena. "Are you ready?" Lila asked softly. Helena's voice cracked. "I'm terrified." Lila smiled. "That means it matters." She reached out and placed her small hand on Helena's knee. Warm, steady, cert. The courtroom leaned forward as one. A faint tremor stirred beneath Helena's skin. A pulse, a spark, a whisper of something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Her breath caught. Her eyes went wide. Sensation flooded through her leg. Sharp, electric, undeniable. Officers lifted hands to their mouths. Lawyers froze. Someone sobbed. Kaylin gripped the edge of his chair, tears streaming down his face. Helena's foot twitched. Just once, barely, but enough. Then her ankle moved. Then her knee bent. Gasps tore through the room like thunder. Helena gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. She pushed. Her legs, cold, numb, dead for 3 years, began to respond. Slowly, painfully, miraculously. She rose, 6 inches, then a foot. Her legs shook violently. Sweat poured down her face. But she didn't stop. She stood. The courtroom exploded. People screamed, cried, prayed. Reporters shoved forward. Cameras flashed like stars burning out. Helena stood trembling, tears streaming, hands gripping the bench for balance. She looked at Lila. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Lila nodded. "Now keep yours." Helena turned to Kaylin, her voice shaking but clear. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Kaylin collapsed into his daughter's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Outside, crowds roared. Inside, Helena took one step, then another. Her legs screamed in pain, but she didn't care. She was walking. For the first time in 3 years, she was walking. Lila watched with quiet joy, her small hand still warm from the miracle she'd delivered. The prosecutor stood frozen, speechless. The world held its breath. And in that moment, everyone believed. Not in magic, not in science, but in something greater. In love, in hope, in the impossible made real by a little girl who refused to stop believing.